Welcome to Thinking Deeper by 6-7. We are diving into the ultimate human question today: does God exist? We'll be unpacking the classic philosophical arguments for a creator, exploring the atheistic counter-perspectives, and looking at why our brains desperately want to find a first cause to the universe. We'll explore watchmakers, self-assembling crystals, and why asking what happened before the universe began might be a completely broken question.
Yeah, it's definitely not a small topic for today.
No, not at all. It's a massive, fascinating journey. And before we really get into the weeds of this, if you like my channel, please subscribe and press the like button.
Oh.
So our mission for this deep dive is to look at a rigorous, totally impartial, and logical breakdown of these most common arguments.
Right.
We're basically setting aside personal belief for a moment just to look at the machinery of the arguments themselves.
I think that's the best way to do it. And, setting the stage for that, what's fascinating here is how we humans use tools built for our everyday reality. Like, we use concepts like cause and effect, right?
Sure.
And we try to take those tools to explain the entirely incomprehensible origin of absolutely everything.
Right. We're basically trying to, measure the depth of the ocean with a plastic school ruler.
That's a great way to put it. We're applying local, everyday rules to this cosmic foundational mystery.
Which brings us to the first really instinctive argument from our notes, the first cause.
Yeah, the big one.
Right. It feels almost hardwired into us. The logic is just, well, everything we see has a cause. A tree comes from a seed, a building comes from builders.
Nothing just pops into existence.
Exactly. Nothing just appears. So the universe itself must have a cause, and that cause must be God.
It's super intuitive. You push a glass, it falls. Cause and effect.
Okay, let's unpack this, because there's a massive kind of silent contradiction sitting right in the middle of that.
Oh, absolutely.
If the absolute rule is everything needs a cause, well, then God needs a cause too.
Right. Who caused the creator?
Exactly. But if you say, well, God doesn't need a cause, God is outside the rules, then you just broke your own unbreakable rule. So why not just say the universe itself doesn't need a cause?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on the exact philosophical trap there. Defining an exception isn't a true explanation.
Right.
It's merely a consolation. The first cause argument doesn't actually solve the problem. It pushes it one step further back into the shadows.
It just relocates the mystery.
Exactly. You change why does the universe exist to why does God exist. It comforts our brains, but logically, it's unsolved.
A consolation, not an explanation.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great way to frame it. But wait, it gets even wilder when we bring time into the mix.
Oh, time makes this entirely brain-bending.
Because causality needs time, right? A cause has to happen before an effect.
Oh, always. Event A triggers event B. You need a timeline for that.
But time itself is a property of the universe. It was created at the Big Bang. So before the universe existed, time literally didn't exist.
Right. The very concept of before needs time to even make sense.
So our vocabulary is just totally broken here. The notes bring up this brilliant analogy for it. Asking what came before the universe is like asking what is north of the North Pole.
It's such a perfect analogy, because if you're standing exactly on the North Pole, every single direction is south.
Right, there is no more north.
Exactly. Not because there's a magical wall blocking you.
Yeah, just because the geometry of the Earth makes the whole idea of further north meaningless at that spot.
So when we ask what triggered the universe to start, the framework of the question just collapses. And honestly, sometimes the most honest answer we can give is simply silence.
Just admitting the question is broken?
Yeah, admitting the limits of our concept.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah.
If you're listening and feeling a little mental vertigo right now, you are definitely not alone.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is. So let's shift gears. If the first cause argument hits a dead end with the physics of time, the human brain looks for another route. The design argument.
The famous watchmaker analogy.
Right. If you see a pocket watch on the ground, you don't assume the gears just randomly bump together. You assume a watchmaker.
You see order, you assume purpose.
Exactly. So if you look at a perfectly ordered universe with complex biology and planetary orbits, it demands a designer.
It plays right into our pattern recognition instincts, We build things, so we assume the universe was built.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. There's a huge flaw in this human-centric thinking.
Oh, for sure.
When we make a watch, we make it inside a workshop, right? We stand outside the materials and put them together.
Using existing stuff.
But the universe isn't an object inside a workshop. The universe is the workshop.
What's fascinating here is how that classical argument totally underestimates natural, unguided processes.
Yes, like complexity doesn't always need a blueprint.
Exactly. Take snowflakes, for example.
Oh, I love this example from the sources.
They form these wildly complex, perfectly symmetrical geometric patterns, and there is no tiny microscopic sculptor doing that.
No one is carving the ice.
Right. It's entirely chemistry and thermodynamics. The water molecules just naturally seek the lowest energy state as they freeze.
Which forces them into that hexagon shape.
Yeah. Or think about giant crystal caves, perfectly aligned geometric pillars.
Just from molecular bonds over thousands of years. It's crazy.
And when you scale that up to biology, you get evolution. The classic watchmaker argument always points to the human eye, right?
Right, they say it's too complex to be an accident. If you remove one part, it breaks.
But evolutionary biology shows it didn't just pop into existence. It started as a simple patch of light-sensitive cells.
Just enough to tell day from night.
Exactly. Then a tiny variation makes that patch cup-shaped so it can tell which direction the light is coming from.
Which is a huge survival advantage.
Massive! Add millions of years and countless microscopic variations, and you arrive at the complex eye. It just requires vast amounts of time and variation. No foresight needed.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure, go for it.
The counter to this is usually, fine, biology evolves, snowflakes form, but what about the setup itself?
Ah, the math.
Yes, the fine-tuning argument. The physical constants of the universe gravity, the strong nuclear force they're set with terrifying precision to allow for life.
Right, if you tweak them even a tiny fraction of a percent, nothing exists.
Gravity is a tiny bit stronger, the universe collapses, a tiny bit weaker, no stars form. So isn't that mathematical perfection proof of an intentional setup?
It's super compelling. It makes us feel very special, like the whole cosmos was handcrafted just for us.
But there's a major logical flip here, and I want to highlight this for you listening. Life didn't shape the universe. Life adapted to it.
It's a complete inversion of the premise.
Right. If the conditions were different matter or structures would exist. We might not call it life, but something would be there, perfectly adapted to those new rules.
And that thing would probably look around and think, wow, the universe is perfectly tuned for me.
Exactly. It's massive survivor bias.
Right. We can only observe a universe capable of supporting us, because if it didn't, we literally wouldn't be here to ask the question.
Which brings up the puddle analogy. I mean, this analogy from the text just blew my mind.
The puddle is brilliant, Douglas Adams, right?
Yeah. Imagine a puddle waking up one morning, looking at the pothole it's sitting in, and thinking, wow, this hole fits me perfectly.
It must have been designed just for me.
The jagged edges exactly match my edges. It's a miracle. But the reality is the exact opposite.
The puddle just fluidly conformed to the hole.
We are the puddle. We look at gravity and electromagnetism and marvel at how they fit us. But we evolved to fit them. We conform to our pothole.
It's not a miracle of design. It's just adaptation. It really takes the mystical weight out of the fine-tuning argument.
So what does this all mean? If the first cause argument contradicts causality, and the design argument misunderstands natural complexity.
And the fine-tuning argument has cause and effect backward.
Right. If the logic is this flawed, why is God still such a popular answer? Why is it our default?
Well, the human brain hates a vacuum. We hate not knowing things.
Oh, totally. An unsolved mystery creates all this cognitive tension.
Exactly. We crave an explanation to feel safe. But in science and philosophy, a good explanation is supposed to reduce mystery.
Right. It should break things down so you have fewer questions than you started with.
But saying God did it doesn't do that at all.
Not at all. It just creates a mountain of new, massive questions.
Like, how does a mind exist without a physical brain?
How does a being exist without time? Why does this infinite entity care about tiny biological bipeds on a speck of dust?
None of the actual mechanics of creation are explained. The explanation is just delayed.
You're just saying there's a magical box over there that did it and we can't look inside.
Which connects to the text's central thesis on this. In this context, the word God often just functions as a label we slap over our own ignorance.
Like ancient map makers writing, "Here be dragons," over the parts of the ocean they hadn't explored yet.
That's a great comparison. They just didn't want to leave the map blank. But that's where honest science is so different.
Science is actually okay with the blank spaces.
It has to be. When science hits a wall like what exactly happened at the precise fraction of a second of the Big Bang, it doesn't invent an answer to feel better.
It simply says, we don't know.
Right. Admitting ignorance isn't a weakness, it's the ultimate intellectual honesty.
Because saying we don't know keeps the door open for discovery, right?
Exactly. If you fill the gap with a definitive supernatural answer, the investigation stops entirely.
You don't build better telescopes if you think you already know what's in the dark.
Certainty is the enemy of discovery.
And that is so true.
Yeah.
Which really brings us to the ultimate question at the heart of this deep dive. Does assuming God explain the universe, or just delay the explanation?
That seems to just push it away.
Right. And the logic folds in on itself. You either enforce the rule of causality for everything, including God, or you allow exceptions, which means the universe can be an exception.
You really can't have it both ways.
No, you can't.
And, my final thought for you to ponder on this, building on the sources we've looked at today, is this.
Yeah, go ahead.
If we can accept the immense, terrifying beauty of a universe that might just exist on its own without a watchmaker, just endless time and physical laws, perhaps learning to sit comfortably with the phrase, "I don't know," allows for a much deeper sense of awe.
Wow.
It's better than rushing to fill the silence with an invented answer.
I don't know as an invitation to awe rather than something to be afraid of. I absolutely love that. It turns the unknown into an adventure.
It really does.
Well, I think that is the perfect, profound place to leave it for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the bounds of logic, existence, and our crazy universe. Keep questioning, keep wondering, and we'll catch you on the next one.